The true, cosmic liberation for the ancient bloodlines has finally arrived. Has the divine decree ultimately been sealed in both ink and spirit? A celestial horn blasts, resonating powerfully through both the seen and unseen worlds. They stripped away your true name and buried your identity, hoping you would forever forget the royalty of who you are. Yet, on the 4th of July, 2026, a shift occurred, a pivotal alignment that the heavens have been anticipating for ages. There sat Donald Trump, bathed in the strobe of camera flashes, heralding what he deemed the most significant tax cuts in the annals of American history. But unknown to the masses, his earthly actions were syncing perfectly with a profound, divine timeline. In that precise split second, the stroke of his pen did not just sign a bill. It bridged a gap of 3,400 years, locking into an ancient prophetic coordinate. Those documents resting before him were far more than bureaucratic adjustments or fiscal policy. They were the very blast of the Jubilee Trumpet, sounding specifically for the awakening of the true Israel. As we meditate in the dawn of 2027, casting our spiritual gaze back to November 2026, a vibration is felt. Right now, across this vast nation, the awakened voices of the Hebrew communities are vibrating with a singular, unified revelation. The great horn of Jubilee has indeed thundered. Yet, the tragedy remains that the vast majority of humanity remain deaf to its call. The masses perceived only the theatrics of politics and continued their slumber. But the remnant, those blessed with eyes to perceive the unseen and ears to catch the frequency of heaven, witnessed a majestic unfolding that dwarfs the machinations of the entire world. Make no mistake, this was never about a campaign pledge finding fulfillment on a worldly stage. This was the living, breathing activation of Leviticus chapter 25, manifesting in our reality. You must grasp the sheer spiritual weight and magnitude of the shift that has just taken place. The irony woven into this tapestry is so precise, so divinely orchestrated, that it defies the chaotic nature of mere coincidence. Consider this: a world leader whose policies act as an unwitting tool of prophecy has authorized the very documents of liberation for a people who wander in amnesia, unaware that they are the chosen heirs. Let that truth settle deep within your soul. The ethereal realm stood at attention and bore witness to a thunderous event that the natural world, in its blindness, completely overlooked. While Trump basked in the applause of deregulation and fiscal relief, the angelic hosts were fixated on the restoration of ancient covenant vows coming to pass. What if the chaotic tapestry of American events is not political weaving at all? What if these seismic economic shifts are not born of policy, but are the visible fingerprints of the Creator moving across the earth? What if the act of signing that decree on Independence Day was far more than a gesture of patriotic pride, but rather a calculated ritual of prophetic symbolism? What if you are standing in the very midst of the Jubilee year, watching the prophecy breathe, yet you failed to recognize its face? Here lies the hidden knowledge that the powers that be are desperate to conceal from you. The statutes signed into law by Trump reflect, with eerie precision, the sacred statutes and principles of the biblical Jubilee. We are speaking of the erasure of crushing debts, the breaking of economic chains, and the divine restoration of inheritance to the original bloodline custodians. It is freedom, proclaimed not by whisper, but by the blast of the horn. Every celestial alignment is in place, and the timing is impeccable. November 2026 has been identified as the definitive moment of the Jubilee Trumpet by the sages who decode biblical prophecy, a signal that cannot be dismissed. Are you prepared to peel back the layers and witness how a mere signature on a government document became the catalyst for prophetic completion? Are you ready to comprehend that what the news networks labeled as dry tax policy the kingdom of heaven celebrated as the Great Jubilee. For once your eyes are opened to this reality, you can never return to blindness. Once this truth takes root, the landscape of current events will forever transform before your gaze. The veil of illusion is being torn asunder, and you are destined to witness a revelation so profound it will vibrate through the very core of your being. This is far beyond the realm of conspiracy theories or idle speculation. This is the thunderous collision of ancient scripture and modern headlines, a convergence that demands your absolute, unwavering focus. This is the intersection where prophecy crashes into the daily news cycle, revealing that we are not merely observing the passage of history. We are beholding his story, the divine narrative unfolding with exacting precision, just as it was scribed. It is the living dance of Leviticus 25 and the ultimate mission of the Messiah. I invite you to open the sacred text to the book of Leviticus, chapter 25, verses 8 through 13. I require you to internalize every syllable penned 3,400 years ago, for the revelation you are about to receive will cause your spirit to resonate in undeniable confirmation. Listen with your soul. And you shall number 7 Sabbaths of years to yourself, 7 times 7 years, so that the space of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto you 49 years. Then you shall cause the loud trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. On the day of atonement you shall make the trumpet sound throughout all your land, and you shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and you shall return every man unto his possession, and you shall return every man unto his family. Do those words penetrate your heart? Proclaim liberty throughout the earth. Return to your rightful inheritance. Return to your kin, to your lineage. This is not some dusty historical record. This is a living prophecy with your specific destiny inscribed upon it. The ancient Hebrew term for this season is Yovel. It signifies the piercing sound of the trumpet, specifically the ram's horn, the shofar that shattered the silence to announce total liberation. In the days of ancient Israel, when that specific frequency vibrated through the air, the entire social order shifted instantly. All debts were completely washed away. Those bound in servitude walked into freedom. Lands that had been stripped away by the cruelty of economic hardship were restored to their original tribal guardians. It was a total economic reset, decreed by the Creator himself, woven into the very fabric of the law as an eternal safeguard against the tyranny of perpetual oppression. Allow me to illuminate the depth of what Jubilee truly entailed. If your lineage had been stripped of its territory due to debt after 49 years of struggle, the arrival of the 50th year meant that land returned to your hands by divine right. If the weight of poverty forced you to sell your very self into servitude just to survive, the moment Jubilee arrived, your chains fell, and you walked out a free man. Every contract that held a soul in bondage was nullified, every ledger of debt was erased, every economic shackle was shattered into dust. This was not an act of mere charity, this was the enforcement of covenant justice. Now, let us propel our vision forward to the New Testament era. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 4, verses 18 and 19, Jesus rises within the synagogue, unfurls the ancient scroll of Isaiah, and speaks words that vibrate through eternity. The Spirit of the divine Creator rests heavily upon me, for I have been anointed to herald the gospel of hope to the destitute. I have been dispatched to declare absolute freedom to the imprisoned, and the miraculous restoration of sight to the blind, to shatter the shackles of those who are crushed by oppression, and to loudly proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord's divine favor. Do you truly comprehend the magnitude of the Lord's year of favor? We speak of the ancient, holy Jubilee. The Messiah stood and declared that his entire earthly mission was to bring the Jubilee principle into living reality. Liberation for the captives, glad tidings for the impoverished, and total emancipation for the downtrodden. Understand this clearly. It was never mere poetry or metaphor. It was a divine mandate, a blueprint for a new reality. And if the Savior came to proclaim the Jubilee, and if we are indeed standing on the precipice of his return, must we not expect that sacred cycle to manifest once more? Let us gaze deeply into the policies of Trump in the year 2026. Cast your eyes upon the document signed on the 4th of July, 2026. Study the syntax. Absorb the very architecture of the law. Observe the consequences. I am preparing to unveil convergences that transcend mere chance. These are not accidents. They are celestial confirmations. We arrive now at the threshold of awe, where the skin prickles with realization. Prophecy is not dead ink on parchment. It is a living, breathing force, unfolding before our very eyes in real time. They christened it the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, signed into existence on the very day of independence. The projections from the Congressional Budget Office foresee a seismic shift of over $4 trillion spanning the coming decade. Yet, allow me to reveal the spiritual essence of this legislation. It shatters the shackles of financial servitude. It restores the wealth to the hands of the multitude. It severs the iron links of systemic indebtedness. Does this resonate within your spirit? It must, for these are the echoes of Leviticus, chapter 25. Permit me to guide you through this mystery, descending layer by deeper layer, until the vision is so lucid that denial becomes impossible. The first seal, the sounding of the trumpet. Leviticus 25, verse 9, ordains that the blast of Jubilee must pierce the air on the 10th day of the 7th month, the holy day of atonement. The ancient Hebrew term shofar signifies a thunderous vibration, a roar that no ear can ignore. It was a proclamation made for the entire nation to witness. None could turn a deaf ear. In the days of old Israel, the physical horn of the ram was raised by the priesthood and blown for all to hear. And in the year 2026, what sounds do we perceive? We hear the thunder of executive orders rippling across every news network. We see policy declarations burning across the social media sphere. We hear the voices of the Black Hebrew Israelite channels proclaiming that the trumpet of Jubilee has indeed sounded in November of 2026. The vessel of delivery has evolved, yet the essence of the message remains immutable. Liberty is being shouted throughout the land. Meditate upon the divine timing. Trump ratifies this bill on July 4th, Independence Day, the very day a nation celebrates its emancipation. Then, as November arrives, those with eyes to see the prophetic tapestry begin to whisper, "This is the moment of the Jubilee Trumpet." The worldly realm rejoices over fiscal adjustments, but the spiritual remnant perceives the closing of an ancient covenant fulfillment. Two distinct congregations listen to the same frequency, yet interpret the signal through vastly different spirits. The ancient trumpet was never silent. It was a roar, inescapable and disruptive to the mundane. When the shofar cried out, all labor ceased, and all souls stood at attention. Is this not the precise phenomenon we witnessed when Trump affixed his signature to this bill? Every media outlet broadcast it. Every economist dissected it. Every citizen was touched by the news. The vibration was omnipresent. That, my friends, is the trumpet. That is the celestial announcement. And as it was written in Leviticus, the sound was immediately succeeded by tangible, physical, economic liberation. Pause here. Let this truth settle in your soul. The medium transforms, but the decree is eternal. Freedom is spoken into existence. The trumpet's voice shifts in this digital era. yet the summons to liberty remains clear. We descend to the second layer, the annihilation of debt. This is the beating heart of the Jubilee. Leviticus 25, verses 35 through 41, elucidates the law clearly. Should your kin fall into poverty, they are to be released and returned to the possession of their fathers. The chains of economic servitude are shattered at the Jubilee. Debts are washed away. The era of bondage is concluded. The heavy yoke forged by destitution is broken by the decree of the Almighty every 50 years. This was the Creator's fail-safe against eternal tyranny. Regardless of the depth of the darkness, the light of Jubilee was inevitable. Redemption was a promise kept. Gaze now upon the reality of Trump's policy. The cap on state and local tax deductions was lifted from $10,000 to $40,000 for the tax years spanning 2022 through 2029. This represents a reprieve of $30,000 for families currently being suffocated by the weight of taxation. This is the very definition of debt relief. This is the act of retaining your harvest rather than yielding it to the machine. The standard deduction for those joined in marriage was elevated to $31,500 for the year 2026. This signifies that the initial $31,500 of your labor remains untouched by the levy. This is the essence of economic emancipation. It is the breath of life returning to families submerged in the floodwaters of obligation. Those who build and create, the small business owners, received permanent 100% bonus depreciation. This is capital flowing back to the dreamers. Observe the language closely. Forgiveness of debt, financial sovereignty, the restoration of resources to the populace. Do not mistake this for mere tax reform. This is the policy of Jubilee. Every sacred tenet is present and accounted for. The obliteration of financial chains, the release from systemic extraction, the restoration of dominion to those crushed under the millstone of fiscal slavery. Do you grasp the true nature of the Jubilee? It was the profound acknowledgement that economic engines, if left to their own devices, will inevitably hoard riches at the summit and pulverize those at the foundation. The Almighty foresaw this inequity. Thus, He embedded a cosmic reset mechanism into the fabric of the law. Every 50 years, the board is overturned and justice is reborn. Once every half-century, a divine clock strikes, shattering the chains of the enslaved and washing away the stain of debt. It is the moment when the cosmic scales of justice are forcibly rebalanced by an unseen hand. Look around you. Can you not feel the tremors of this ancient alignment shaking our present reality? For too long, the shadow of heavy taxation has eclipsed the sun for honest families, while the elite wove webs of loopholes to escape their due. Generations have watched the humble merchant suffocate under the iron grip of bureaucracy, even as the titans of industry were lifted up and rescued by the very hands that choked the small. But behold, the tide turns with a thunderous roar, a colossal shifting of wealth, trillions of dollars flowing like a river back to the populace. This is not mere finance, this is the economics of Jubilee made manifest. Do not mistake this for mundane legislation or tax code. This is the decree of Jubilee etched into modern law. Absorb the gravity of this truth. We descend now to the third layer, the restoration of the primal inheritance. The ancient scrolls of Leviticus, chapter 25, verses 10 and 13, thunder with this commandment: every soul must journey back to their rightful possession, returning to the soil of their fathers. In the days of old Israel, when the Jubilee trumpet sounded, a miracle occurred. If the sacred tribal earth of your kin had been bartered away in desperation, the cycle of debt was shattered and the land returned to your hands. The territory of your bloodline was restored, for inheritance is not a privilege, but a covenant right sealed by the divine. Come with me now. we must voyage into deeper waters. For the Black American experience, this revelation carries a prophetic resonance heavy enough to tremble the soul. You are the true seed of Israel. This is not a theory to be debated. It is a reality to be embraced. It stands as an immutable pillar of history and scripture. Your forebears were the primordial Hebrews, the chosen line. Yet, a great theft occurred. Your very heritage was plucked from your grasp. They stripped away your soil, erased your identity, and silenced your true names. But hear this. Jubilee is the cosmic demand for the complete return of everything that was pilfered in the darkness. The deregulation crusade led by Trump in the year 2026 has shattered the invisible walls that once barred the common man from the kingdom of prosperity. By unshackling the architects of artificial intelligence, he has granted access to the fire that will forge the future economy. Simultaneously, the blessings upon small business stocks have been amplified, opening new reservoirs of wealth. The regulatory fortresses that guarded the monopolies of the giants have been pulled down, stone by stone. Witness the return of possession. While the restoration of physical earth approaches on the horizon, we speak now of a different territory, the reclaiming of economic dominion and access. The very instruments of creation and abundance are being placed back into the hands of those who were methodically exiled from the table of plenty. Gates that have rusted shut for centuries are swinging wide. The economic potency of your lineage was violently siphoned away through the horrors of bondage. Even after the chains fell, the theft continued, morphing into the cruelty of sharecropping, the segregation of Jim Crow, the red lines on maps, the cages of mass incarceration, and the snares of predatory debt. For 4 centuries, whenever the Black Spirit sought to construct a legacy in America, the machine devised a method to confiscate it. Yet Jubilee roars a different decree: reclaim that which was stolen. The Great Restoration declares that your pilfered inheritance is returning to its source. The way Trump's policies align with this ancient rhythm is nothing short of prophetic poetry written in real time. In his mind, he is merely aiding the merchant, stoking the fires of commerce, and seeking the glory of the nation. But unbeknownst to the vessel, the Creator is orchestrating these events through him to restore the birthright of the true Israel. Every signature and decree is tethered to a spiritual design far grander than politics. He sets ink to paper, unknowingly aligning with celestial truths, fulfilling ancient scrolls to unlock floodgates of blessing for a people poised for reception. Meditate on that mystery. We ascend now to the 4th layer, the proclamation of total liberty to those in chains. Turn your spirit's eye to the Gospel of Luke, chapter 4, verses 18 and 19. The Messiah himself declared the Jubilee principle as the core of his earthly mission. Observe now, with spiritual clarity, how the policies of 2026 mirror every facet of that divine proclamation. To the destitute, he brings glad tidings. To the laboring families, a lifting of the financial yoke. It manifests as tangible hope, the gift of breath to the suffocating. Liberty is granted to the captives as entrepreneurs are unshackled from the dungeon of excessive rule. Souls ensnared in the web of economic servitude are finally handed the blade to cut themselves free. Hear the sound of shackles hitting the floor. And now, the recovery of sight for the blind. The airwaves are igniting with the revelations of the Black Hebrew lineage. A slumbering people are snapping awake, eyes opening to the majestic reality of their identity as Israel. The heavy veil that obscured history, theology, and the meaning of our times is being violently torn asunder. This is the restoration of vision. The oppressed are being set at liberty. The architecture of systematic economic tyranny is crumbling. The crushing burden, borne by strong backs for generations, is finally being levitated away. Witness Luke 4, verse 18, transmuted into the form of an executive order. This is the Messiah's mission statement, woven into the fabric of the tax code. Every syllable he spoke is finding physical form in the mandates of 2026. The glad tidings, the freedom, the awakening of sight, the great liberation, it is all present. If your vision remains clouded to this convergence, beseech the divine to unveil your eyes, for these signs are not whispered in secret. This truth stands bold and undeniable before you. It is prophetic fulfillment in motion, the rhythmic pattern marching toward the ultimate consummation of time. But let this singular question sear itself into your consciousness at this very moment. If we truly stand within the Jubilee, this cannot be its first whisper in our ear. Prophecy does not manifest from the void without precedent. It constructs, it echoes, it weaves intricate tapestries throughout the ages, following a primordial template. In the mists of antiquity, the Jubilee was a living ritual in Israel. From the dust, archaeologists have unearthed tablets of the ancient Near East, inscriptions that immortalize decrees of debt, erasure mirroring this sacred principle. Upon ascending the throne, mighty kings would issue a royal proclamation of justice, declaring that all debts were washed clean. The Creator wove this thread into the fabric of reality because it mirrors his very essence: justice, mercy, the great reset. This is the eternal design. Cast your mind back to 1865. The Emancipation Proclamation. It has been 160 years since the legal dissolution of slavery in this land. That was intended to be a moment of jubilee, a divine intersection with history. The iron shackles were shattered, the trumpet blast pierced the air. Yet, a tragic flaw remained in the weave. The work was left unfinished, the liberation fragmented. While the body was free, economic chains remained, forging new links through sharecropping and the shadow of Jim Crow. In the sacred texts of Leviticus chapter 25, true liberation demanded the restoration of the earth itself, the return of lost heritage, famously symbolized as 40 acres and a mule. That was the ancient covenant. Yet, that solemn vow was betrayed. The soil was withheld, the birthright remained stolen, and the inheritance was locked away in the vaults of history, denied to its rightful heirs. By the year 1865, a shadow of this prophecy began to take form. While physical chains were struck off, the spirit of the law remained unfulfilled. Freedom was proclaimed, yet the inheritance was barred. Then came 1962. The era of civil rights brought a distinct resonance of the Jubilee vibrating through the ether. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. channeled this ancient frequency, weaving the imagery of biblical release into the modern consciousness. Let freedom ring, that was the blast of the ram's horn, echoing from every peak and valley. Steps were taken, legal shackles were loosened, and voices found their power in the voting booth. Despite these victories, the heavy hand of systemic economic tyranny kept its grip. But beneath the surface, a deeper current began to stir, a profound spiritual resurrection. Souls began to wake from a centuries-long slumber, piercing the veil of the official story to uncover a suppressed lineage, realizing their very names and essence had been pilfered. During those turbulent years of the 1960s, the prophecy breathed again, manifesting in the streets as the relentless fight for civil rights. While dignity was reclaimed, the vaults of prosperity remained barred. Then came 2008, the financial collapse, a dark inversion of the holy cycle, a jubilee in reverse. Rather than the slate being wiped clean, families were ground into dust by foreclosure. Instead of the restoration of ancestral lands, the generational wealth that existed was siphoned away. Why is this tragedy essential to the divine plan? Because before the light of true Jubilee can break the horizon, the beast of Babylon must unmask its hideous nature. The machine had to expose its gears, proving itself to be a predator of the innocent. 2008 tore away the facade, creating a desperate hunger for genuine divine intervention. In that year of 2008, the antithesis of the prophecy took hold. The great theft of Babylon continued unabated, devouring the substance of the people. Yet, that abyssal night was merely the precursor to the morning star. We now stand at the threshold of November 2026, the focal point of the prophetic timeline. We are witnessing a cosmic convergence, where distinct rivers of destiny are merging into a singular, unstoppable torrent of change. The first stream brings tidings of economic shifting, policies that strangely mirror the ancient laws of release, signaling a return of resources to their rightful stewards. The second stream is the awakening of identity, the realization among Black Americans that they are the children of the book, a truth moving from the fringes to the very heart of public consciousness. The third stream is the divine chronograph. November 2026 is being heralded as the moment the great trumpet finally sounds, marked by those who can read the celestial signs. This celestial alignment is far from accidental. It is a symphony conducted from on high. Now, consider the fourth stream. We see the dismantling of the old world through political turmoil and societal upheaval. The ancient structures are cracking, making way for the new kingdom. Every prior tremor in history was merely a rehearsal for this grand finale. The events of 1865 were but a glimpse through a glass darkly. The 1960s were incomplete. 2008 was the necessary darkness. But here, in 2026, every element has finally gathered for the perfect storm. We have the fusion of financial release, spiritual resurrection, precise prophetic timing, the collapse of societal norms, and the undeniable hand of providence. This is no longer a shadow, it is the substance. The true Jubilee is manifesting before our eyes. The blast has sounded, and the proof is etched into the very fabric of our reality. Understanding the chronology is vital. The law of Leviticus 25 instructs us to number 7 Sabbaths of years, 49 circles around the sun, culminating in the 50th. The burning question remains: when did the clock begin ticking for this final eschatological jubilee? Various computations are now aligning upon the horizon of 2026. Many scholars look back to 1976, exactly 50 years prior to our current threshold. If you trace the line of time forward 50 years from 1976, destiny lands you squarely in 2026. Others anchor their counts in the lunar rhythms of the Hebrew calendar or pivotal historical markers, yet the conclusion remains inescapably the same. A multitude of independent reckonings are vectoring toward this specific window in time, November 2026. This specific season is being illuminated by awakened Hebrew Israelite teachers and prophetic voices who have dedicated their lives to deciphering these sacred timelines. This is not the conjecture of a solitary voice in the wilderness. It is a unified chorus of watchmen on the wall, all witnessing the same celestial signals. The synchronization of the ancient calendar, the mathematics of prophecy, and the unfolding of current events defies all probability. It is a masterpiece orchestrated by the finger of the Most High. One need only look at the accelerating signs of the end of the age to see the truth. Global markets are trembling, nations are suffocating under mountains of debt, and the very legitimacy of currency is dissolving as the pillars of the world economy begin to buckle. Political entropy has taken hold, leaving America fractured, arguably more divided now than at any moment since the blood-soaked days of the Civil War. Faith in governance has evaporated, and the social tapestry is unraveling thread by thread. These are not accidents. They are the contractions of a new world, struggling to be born. Amidst this turmoil, a fire has been kindled within the Black community, an explosion of realization regarding their true identity as Israel. Multitudes are casting aside the Eurocentric images of divinity. They were force-fed, choosing instead to dig into the soil of history to unearth their Hebraic roots. The connections between the biblical patriarchs and the Black experience in the Americas are being made with startling clarity, and the platforms proclaiming this truth are expanding exponentially. The conversation is no longer a whisper, it is a roar. The veil of deception is being torn asunder, fulfilling the vision of Ezekiel chapter 37. The dry bones are knitting together, sinew to flesh, breath to lung. In antiquity, the shofar's blast carried for miles across the hills. But in this age, a single truth can traverse the globe, touching millions of souls in a heartbeat. The digital realm has become the trumpet of the apocalypse. Online platforms and viral streams serve as the modern shofar, carrying the frequency of awakening faster than at any other epoch in human existence. This is the perfection of divine timing, where the cutting edge of technology bows to the service of ancient prophecy. Consider the figure of Trump, a pivotal axis in this celestial alignment, a ruler whose earthly decrees unknowingly anchor the fulfillment of the great Jubilee for the true children of Israel. The paradox here is not merely coincidental, it is exquisitely divine in its perfection. He remains blind to the reality that he is the vessel for Leviticus chapter 25. He does not perceive the profound truth that Black Americans are the very Israelites spoken of in the ancient scrolls. He fails to grasp that his political maneuvers are, in truth, prophetic instruments shaped by a higher power. Yet, this is precisely the mysterious nature of how the Creator operates within our realm. The Most High utilizes whichever vessel he deems fit, regardless of their spiritual awareness or recognition of his hand. The convergence of Scripture manifesting into physical reality is now undeniable to those with eyes to see. The principles of the Jubilee year found in Leviticus 25 are manifested. The proclamation of Luke 4:18, declaring liberty to the captives, is realized before us. Deuteronomy 28, witnessing the lifting of the ancient curses of captivity, is fulfilled. Genesis 15:13, marking the completion of the 400 years of deep affliction, is finished. The prophecy of the scattering in Deuteronomy 28:64 has come to pass. And now we turn our gaze to Deuteronomy 30, verses 3 through 5. The great regathering has commenced, with Trump's legislation serving as the unwitting horn of the herald. The 4th day of July, 2026. That singular, magnificent bill signed upon Independence Day was far from an accident. It was prophetic symbolism woven into time. Independence Day transformed into the proclamation of the Jubilee, November 2026, the season of implementation. The timing of this trumpet blast aligns with seamless precision to the Hebrew calendar. The 7th month is the hallowed time when Jubilee is declared. November aligns perfectly with that celestial timing. Every fragment fits the mosaic. This prophetic irony should cause your spirit to pause and reflect. Here stands a leader, aligning world events to bring about Jubilee for true Israel. A man who built his campaign on the promise of making America great again. Yet, he is contributing to the restoration of the birthright belonging to the very people America once held in chains. That is the definition of divine orchestration. The timeline of Daniel's 70 weeks. The warnings of Matthew 24 wars, rumors of conflict, the shaking of the earth, and pestilence are all accelerating with intensity. We are no longer merely approaching the Jubilee. We are fully immersed within it. The trumpet has resonated across the sky. The evidence surrounds us like the air we breathe. Understand that this is not a solitary prophecy standing alone. This is a symphony of multiple ancient foretellings converging in a single moment of history. It is economic liberation, mirroring Leviticus 25. It is the awakening of identity mirroring Ezekiel 37. It is the judgment falling upon oppressors mirroring Revelation 18. It is the beginning of the regathering, as promised in Deuteronomy 30. All these threads are weaving together simultaneously. This is convergence. This is the Kairos moment of destiny. This is the appointed season of divine favor. You were birthed into existence specifically for this hour. Your ancestors sent up prayers through generations for this very day. They endured the horrors of the Middle Passage so that you might stand here today. They survived the crushing weight of slavery so that you could witness this liberation with your own eyes. They carried the unbearable burden so that you could receive the royal inheritance. This is not by chance. You are watching this unfold in the early days of 2027. As you look back at the monumental events of 2026, realize that this is your appointed time. We are past the threshold of approaching the Jubilee. We are walking through its gates. The trumpet has sounded its decree. The pressing question now remains: what unfolds in the next chapter? Guided by the scriptures and the established patterns of prophecy, I can reveal to you with absolute confidence what lies on the horizon. These are not mere speculations. These are predictions anchored in the Word of God and the trajectory upon which we are currently traveling. Keep a vigilant watch for these signs. Mark them well in your spirit. Remember these words, for when they manifest, you will know that the message you received was born of truth. Prediction number 1. A massive economic transfer of wealth. Proverbs 13:22 declares that the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. This is an unbreakable promise. The Jubilee we see is merely the opening act. The legislation Trump signed is but the first wave of the tide. There is a vast ocean of abundance yet to crash upon the shore. Watch closely for additional policies emerging over the next 6 to 12 months that specifically favor small business owners, visionaries, and working families. The resources are destined to flow from the treasury of the Babylon system back into the hands of true Israel. As written in Leviticus 25:28, that which was sold returns in the season of Jubilee. What was stolen shall be restored. Watch for black wealth increasing not by slow degrees, but exponentially. You will see businesses exploding with growth, investments yielding miraculous returns, and generational wealth being reconstructed from the ashes. This is the prophesied wealth transfer, and the process has already begun to turn the wheels. Prediction number 2. A mass awakening to the identity of true Israel. Ezekiel chapter 37 describes the dry bones rattling to life and realizing, I am the Lord. That is the spiritual awakening of identity. That is the veil of deception being torn asunder. We are already witnessing the first light of this dawn. The consciousness of the black Hebrew Israelite is spreading with a speed never before seen. However, it is about to break into the mainstream consciousness. Watch for an explosion of truth in the coming 12 to 18 months. You will see icons, celebrities, athletes, and musicians publicly and boldly declaring their Hebrew Israelite heritage. High-profile figures will step out of the shadows to proclaim, I am Israel. The conversation will shift from the corners of the internet to the center stage of global media. The message will flow like water from the streets into the corporate boardrooms. Once 10% of the people awaken, the remaining 90% will follow with rapid momentum. That is the prophetic domino effect in motion. People digging into genealogy, DNA tests linking them to ancient Hebrew bloodlines, souls reclaiming Hebrew names, studying the sacred tongue, and rejecting the slave names imposed upon them. This is not a theory. This is the reality unfolding right now, and it is about to accelerate beyond measure. Prediction number 3. Judgment falling upon the institutions of oppression. Revelation 18 declares with finality, Babylon has fallen. Judgment is descending upon the oppressors. The very institutions that profited from the trade of human souls, that preached a false image of the divine and suppressed black history, will face total exposure and collapse. Major churches will lose their standing. Scandals will erupt like volcanoes. Financial ruin will strike. Ancient denominations will fracture and split apart. The grand citadels of deception, those spiritual institutions that have long harbored and propagated the great lie, are destined for absolute ruin. The commercial empires that amassed their fortunes upon the broken spines of the enslaved are facing a divine audit, while the government agencies that acted as the enforcers of oppression are being stripped naked before the world. Do not mistake this for mere fantasy or the idle hope of a dreamer. This is the unfolding of ancient scrolls, the manifestation of Isaiah 61 verse 2. The Jubilee is a double-edged sword. It brings the dawn of vengeance for our Creator, where the liberation of the captive and the judgment of the captor occur in the same breath. You cannot sever one from the other. Keep your eyes fixed on the horizon. Within the next 3 to 5 years, we will witness the spectacular stumbling of the titans of industry. Organizations that once deemed themselves gods will be brought down to the dust, proving that the mighty will be humbled and the last shall indeed be first. A reality that the evidence is already whispering. The pews sit empty as attendance withers. Faith in the establishment has crumbled to historical lows, and the stench of scandal rises like thick smoke. These are not mere fissures in the foundation. We are witnessing the prelude to a total structural disintegration of a system built entirely on falsehoods. The fourth revelation. The great physical gathering commences, as written in Deuteronomy 30-35, where the divine promises to recall you from the four corners of the earth where you were scattered. Cast aside all allegory. This is not a metaphor but a literal, physical migration, and the first steps of this exodus are already being taken. Observe the stirring within the souls of Black Americans, turning their gaze toward the motherland. Ghana's year of return was merely the first ripple of a coming tidal wave. Witness the formation of sanctuary communities, driven by prophetic urgency, where awakened souls declare, "I am severing my ties with Babylon. I am returning to my roots." It begins not as a sudden storm, but as a steady stream that will swell into an unstoppable river of return. The essence of the Jubilee principle is restoration, reclaiming your soil, your kin, and your spirit from the hands of the thief. This trinity of restoration is in motion. Watch closely for this acceleration over the next 2 to 4 years as the true bloodline begins its great trek back to the land. The fifth sign reveals the shadow. As light increases, so too does the darkness of persecution, for Revelation 12:17 warns us. The dragon, consumed by rage, wages war against the remnant. History shows us that Babylon does not surrender its captives without a violent struggle. Expect the resistance against the awakening of the Hebrew heritage to sharpen and intensify in the public square. They will wage war through digital silence, shadow banning the truth, twisting narratives, legal warfare, and locking the gates of information against those teaching the Black Hebrew lineage. The skirmishes have already begun, but the intensity will reach a fever pitch in 2026 and 2027. Yet perceive this clearly. Their resistance is the seal of your authenticity. If the enemy strikes this hard, it is because the message is undeniably true and carries power. As we approach the dawn of total liberty, the night grows its coldest and the battle its fiercest, but the final decree has already been signed in the heavens. Victory is inevitable. The true lineage shall be restored. The usurpers shall crumble to dust, and the word of the Most High shall remain unshaken. The sixth revelation. The economic jubilee expands beyond borders. fulfilling Isaiah 49:6. I will make you a light to the nations, that my salvation may reach the ends of the earth. The liberation of the true seed triggers a cascade of blessings for every nation that aligns with the divine order. This is a phenomenon far greater than America alone. This is a planetary shift. Watch as the principles of debt, release, and restoration ripple outward to foreign shores. The chains of usury are breaking globally, with movements gaining momentum to cancel debts and hit the reset button on generations of financial bondage. The prophetic scope of the Jubilee is universal. Watch for this manifestation between 2027 and 2029, bringing international relief and a global economic reset. It is approaching like a freight train. These 6 predictions are not born of speculation, but are anchored in the bedrock of Scripture and the undeniable trajectory of history. Etch these words into your memory, mark them down, for when these events unfold, you will realize this was never mere opinion. It was, and is, divine prophetic intelligence downloaded from the throne room. If these words are vibrating within your spirit right now, pause this transmission for a solemn moment. I must know you are walking this path with me and seeing the revelation. Inscribe the word Jubilee in the scrolls below. Let it be a sign that your eyes are open, that you are awake, and that you hear the distant thunder of the trumpet. And declare your station. Tell me from which city, state, or nation you stand watch over the coming dawn. I seek to map the awakening, to see where the sentinels are posted across the face of the earth. Look at the gathering in the comments below. You do not stand solitary in the dark. A legion of warriors is rising, from the skyscrapers of New York to California, from London to Lagos. The resonance of the trumpet circles the globe. Pass this torch to another soul who hungers to understand the shifting of the ages. Cast aside the notion of amusement. This is a strategic briefing for the remnant, a war room for the spirit, and intelligence for the true heritage. The digital gatekeepers may attempt to cloak this message in shadow, but your hand can shatter their walls and break through the barriers. By sharing this truth, you become the instrument itself, the very voice crying out in the wilderness, not merely a spectator. You are ingesting the hidden manna that the masses are denied. The mainstream mouthpieces and the hollow pulpits will never utter these words. The educational systems will remain silent, but the frequency has found you now because you were selected for this hour by divine appointment. In days of old, the blast of the ram's horn signaled freedom to every ear in the kingdom, proclaiming liberty throughout the land. Today, you are that sound for your bloodline, your friends, and your community. When you spread this word, you are blowing the shofar. You are heralding the great Jubilee, rousing the sleepers from their slumber, as warned in Hosea chapter 4. The ancient scrolls of Hosea chapter 4 verse 6 whisper a haunting truth: a nation withers when wisdom is lost. Your kin, wandering in the fog of forgetfulness, unaware that the blood of Israel courses through their veins, are fading away in the darkness of the unknown. Those companions who believe their story began merely on foreign shores, trapped in modern labels, are walking without their divine birthright. But the veil has been lifted from your eyes, and the sacred torch has been placed in your hands. You are now the bearer of this flame. You must cast its light into the shadows. This is the burden of glory your forebearers groaned for. Beneath the wooden decks of ships crossing the abyss, their spirits wept and pleaded with the Creator for this very hour. Amidst the thorny fields of white cotton, their souls ascended in agonizing prayer, weaving a tapestry of intercession across the centuries. Look in the mirror and behold the manifestation of their hope. You are the living answer to their tear-soaked cries. Destiny has summoned you by name. This is the great commission of your life. The time of restoration is upon us. Let the word Jubilee resonate in the gathering place below, marking your acceptance of this holy charge. Declare your location across the four corners of the earth and steady your spirit, for the revelations to follow will vibrate through the core of your being. You have journeyed through the wilderness to reach this point. Pause not at the threshold of enlightenment. The signs have been unveiled before you. The celestial trumpet has sounded in your ears. We stand now at the precipice of destiny, where a choice must be made. Here, the nature of your soul is weighed in the balance. Will you retreat into the comforting fog of slumber, feigning deafness to the thunderous call of the Most High? Or will you rise like a giant, draped in the royal robes of true Israel, and march boldly into the light of this recovered reality? Align yourself with this watchtower by pressing the button of enrollment immediately. We are not merely creating content here. This is a sanctuary of prophetic insight, a beacon in the storm. With each passing cycle, I peel back the layers of worldly events to reveal the ancient scriptural patterns hidden beneath the chaos. Where the world sees only noise, I illuminate the divine connections, invisible to the unawakened eye, sounding the shofar relentlessly for the lost tribes to return home. It is vital that you remain tethered to this stream of revelation, lest the next sign pass you by. Activate every signal, and alert leave no gateway closed to the messages that must reach you. When the heavens roar once more, your spirit must be instantly attuned to the frequency. As the next seal of prophecy is broken, you must be the first to witness the unfolding. As the grand mosaic of the end times assembles itself, ignorance is a luxury you cannot afford. Ensure all lines of communication are open. In this moment, become an apostle of truth and dispatch this vision to 3 souls destined to hear it. First, seek out the kinsperson whose spirit slumbers deeply, unaware of the awakening dawn. The elder who faithfully attends the pews week after week, yet has never dared to look beyond the painted images to find the true face of the Messiah. The relative who believes our saga began in chains rather than glory. Or the parent who gazes with confusion as you dig for the ancient Hebrew roots of your family tree. Grant them this key. Their soul is crying out to be shaken from its sleep. Second, find the one who bears the scars of religious wounds and thirsts for the unadulterated waters of truth. The companion who turned their back on the altar, unable to bridge the chasm between a benevolent creator and the endless tribulations of our people. The skeptic who proclaims the Holy Scriptures are merely the conqueror's weapon, fashioned to enslave the mind. They must be shown that the sacred text is, in truth, the chronicle of their own bloodline. Deliver this message to them. Third, reach out to the melanated soul who walks in oblivion of their Israelite heritage. The one who labors beside you, the dweller next door, or the stranger in the marketplace, a spirit who has never felt the vibration of this ancient call. They wander through life disconnected from their majesty, and you hold the precise frequency required to shatter their amnesia. Transmit this vision to them. If each watcher ignites 3 other candles, we shall birth a prophetic wildfire that sweeps across the nations, multiplying the light beyond measure. The sound of the shofar intensifies, and the great awakening gains the momentum of a storm. You are no longer a mere spectator. You are a conduit of divine revelation. You are a herald of the kingdom, a pillar in the spiritual architecture of this mighty movement of the Most High. Now, I charge you with a sacred task for the coming days. Perform an act that symbolizes your breaking of chains. Immerse yourself in the wisdom of Leviticus chapter 25 and Luke chapter 4. Do not rest upon my testimony alone. Devour the scrolls yourself and allow the Ruach HaKodesh to seal the truth within the chambers of your heart. Wipe clean the ledger of a debtor. Embody the spirit of Jubilee. If a soul is burdened by what they owe you and cannot repay, Sever the chains of obligation and set them free. This is the ancient law of liberation made manifest. Begin to reclaim the tongue of your forefathers, for the Hebrew language once danced upon the lips of your ancestors. The code of your identity is woven into those very syllables. Absorb even a few sacred utterances. Shalom, Baruch, Adonai. Delve deep into the archives of history to uncover your true tribal lineage. Meditate upon the 12 distinct houses of Israel. Petition the Creator to unveil the specific bloodline from which you descend, for this is a journey of discovery guided by the Spirit. Lay the cornerstone of your own enterprise. Economic sovereignty is the heartbeat of Jubilee. Cease toiling solely for another man's vision and begin to construct your own empire. The Jubilee is not merely a season of gathering, but a transformation of being. It is the alchemy of the soul, shifting from the mind of the captive to the consciousness of the royal priesthood. Ascend from the valley of victimhood to the mountaintop of the chosen generation. Break the yoke of financial servitude. Execute a tangible deed this week that stands as a monument to your freedom. This is the inheritance ordained for you before the foundations of the world. This is the legacy you carry. This is the undeniable truth of your existence. You are not the wreckage left by history's tide. You are the triumphant fulfillment of prophecy. You are not merely the offspring of the enslaved, but the scion of ancient Israel. You do not dwell in the dust. You are the elect being reinstated to your rightful throne. But your mission extends beyond the mere acquisition of wisdom. You are charged with transmitting this sacred flame to the ones who follow. Your children must look in the mirror and recognize the royalty staring back at them. Your children's children must be rooted in their divine identity. This great awakening must not die with you. It must flow through you like a mighty river to future ages. Your forebears endured the horrors of the Middle Passage. They withstood the humiliation of the auction block. They outlasted the brutality of the plantations. They walked through the fires of Jim Crow, the terror of the noose, the systemic theft of redlining, and the cages of mass incarceration, and they remained unbroken. They bore the weight of centuries so that you might stand here, breathing, in this pivotal hour. Do not let their blood cry out in vain by sealing your lips. Do not mock their agonizing prayers by remaining in a spiritual coma. They battled through darkness to grant you this light. Seize it. You are the rising sons and daughters of the Jubilee generation. Behold, the chosen remnant who shall witness the total renewal of all things. You are the sacred vessels prepared to receive the overflowing bounty shifting from the hands of the wicked to the just. These are the souls destined to feel the magnetic pull of the great assembly. You are the watchers who will gaze upon the crumbling towers of Babylon with your own eyes. You are the awakened spirits who hear the celestial horn and answer the call. Understand this truth deep within your marrow. This is your identity. We have moved beyond rehearsals. The veil has been torn. The ancient horn of Jubilee has already pierced the silence in November 2026. The decrees have been inked by earthly leaders, yet orchestrated by divine hands. The policies are active. The Great Awakening is surging around us. The threads of prophecy are weaving together into a single, undeniable tapestry. Ancient scrolls are breathing life into our present reality. You are currently walking through the very manifestation of tears and prayers sown by your ancestors centuries ago. A divergence lies before you in this pregnant moment. Will you retreat into the slumber of the unconscious, missing your appointed time? Or will you rise, clothed in the majesty of your true Israelite lineage, and seize your birthright? History is writing its final chapter. Where will your name be found? Among those who saw the burning bush and turned away, or within the Jubilee generation that stepped boldly into the holy fire? Bind yourself to this assembly, so you remain vigilant for the revelations yet to unfold. Keep your spiritual senses sharp and your notifications active, lest the trumpet sound and you are found deaf to its frequency. Carry this sacred message to the three souls the Spirit revealed to you. Commit to a single act of liberation before this week concludes. Above all, embody this reality from this very breath forward, rejecting the procrastination of tomorrow. The time is now. This mission belongs to you. Transmit this light to every ear attuned to the frequency of truth. You possess a choice, a divine summons, and an unbreakable blood covenant. This transcends the mere passive observation of a screen. This is a summons to take your station. You are a gladiator for verity. You are the sentinel standing upon the fortress wall. You are the herald of the great Jubilee. Walk worthy of this high office. The breaking of financial chains is merely the prologue. The restoration of the spirit is the main event. The physical gathering of the tribes approaches. Total vindication dawns on the horizon. You are Israel. This is your season of release. The Kairos moment is here. Squander or not this precious gift. Abba, the Ancient of Days, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Elohim of the true bloodline, we approach your throne in this sacred hour of release. We confess that it is you alone who sounds the shofar. You are the great emancipator who declares freedom to the captives. You are the breaker who shatters every debt. We perceive your fingerprints upon every event we have witnessed and every rumor we have heard. We discern your signals in the laws, the seasons, and the stirring of souls. We see your sovereign hand maneuvering through unlikely vessels. We witness you employing even those who do not know your name to bring your ancient words to pass. We offer thanks for the signing of decrees that align with what you ordained as a Jubilee timeline. We praise you for every order, every removal of restriction, and every shift in the economy that mirrors the holy law of Leviticus 25. Father, our hearts cry out for our kin still trapped in the slumber of ignorance. Unseal their vision that they may behold their royal reflection. Let the scales of deception turn to dust. May they realize they are true Israel, the carriers of the covenant blood. Unleash the spirit of wisdom and revelation. Let the sound of the Jubilee horn resonate in the spirit of every melanated soul across the lands. We stand on the promise of Ezekiel 37. Command these dry, scattered bones to resurrect. Let them know, I am Yah. Shield us as we traverse this path of enlightenment. You vowed in Luke 4:18 to shatter the yoke of the oppressor. Encircle us with fire against those who resist this awakening. Place a hedge of thorns around every sentinel, every truth speaker, and every messenger. Grant us the fortitude to withstand the pressure that accompanies deep revelation. Forge us to be unyielding like Daniel, fireproof like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and commanding like Moses in the courts of Pharaoh. Father, you declared in Isaiah 61 verse 2 that the year of favor brings with it the day of divine vengeance. We petition for your holy gavel to fall upon every institution that has crushed your chosen ones. Illuminate and dismantle every sanctuary that preached a counterfeit deity. Collapse every system built upon the merchandise of our bodies. Let truth be the hammer that smashes every fabrication regarding our lineage. You promised the collapse of Babylon. Let the rubble fall this day. Let the arrogant be humbled to the dust. Let those who oppressed taste the bitterness of their own cup. We reach out and seize our Jubilee inheritance in this instant. We manifest financial liberty, spiritual wholeness, and the restoration of our names. By the blood of the Messiah and the authority of the Jubilee, every ledger against us is wiped clean. We lay claim to the transference of riches. The treasuries of the wicked, hoarded for ages, are now flowing into the hands of the just. We decree a return to our rightful estate. That which was plundered is being returned sevenfold. That which was concealed is being brought to light. That which was hidden is now revealed. Summon true Israel from the four winds of the earth. Initiate the great assembly foretold in Deuteronomy 30. Stitch the tribes back together. Let our spirits resonate with one another in covenant brotherhood. Ready us for the physical migration, whether to the motherland or to sacred enclaves established here. Remold us into one nation. Reveal to us our ancient names. Let us wrap ourselves in our true heritage. Let us bow only to our true King. Grant us the wisdom to navigate the storms ahead. Bestow upon us discernment for every choice. Teach us to be shrewd as serpents, yet gentle as doves. As we broadcast this reality, instruct us in the ways of Jubilee, forgiving what is owed, unlocking chains, and healing the broken. Constitute us as faithful guardians of this newfound freedom. Let us not hoard your manna, but become rivers of living water to our kin. We proclaim into the atmosphere that the Jubilee Trumpet has thundered in November 2026. We decree that we are Israel, the elect bloodline, the royal priesthood, the set-apart nation. We decree the shattering of every shackle, chains of poverty, chains of spirit, chains of the mind, and chains of trauma, all are dissolved. We declare your promises are firm and absolute. The words spoken in Leviticus 25 are materializing before our very eyes. We open our spirits to receive this sacred inheritance, walking boldly within its light and proclaiming its reality to the nations. May this rising generation of the Jubilee ascend with unstoppable power, anchored deep in the bedrock of divine truth. Let us be the chosen vessels who witness the miracle of complete and total restoration in our time. Grant us the eyes to behold the unfolding of your radiant glory as it permeates every corner of our existence. May we stride confidently into the abundance of every promise our ancestors whispered in their most fervent prayers. We stand unbound. We are the embodiment of Israel. We belong, eternally and completely, to you. We seal this decree in the authority of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah, the Anointed One, who stood and declared the great Jubilee, as written in the book of Luke, chapter 4, verse 18. He is the liberator who came to shatter the chains of the captive and the herald who announced the era of the Lord's infinite favor. In his mighty and matchless name, we offer this prayer. Amen. Amen, and let it be so. The great spiritual trumpet has blasted its triumphant sound. Step now into your destiny of Jubilee. You are fully released. You are Israel,